Hello, and thank you for listening to this special edition of Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, a podcast where I ask the question, whatever happened to the pizza at McDonald's? I'm your host, Brian Thompson. In past editions of this program, I would inform you that we are a proud part of the Panoply Network, but I can do so no more. Yesterday, I received the following correspondence from Ava Lubell, General Counsel for the Slate Group, parent company of the Panoply Network. Mr. Thompson, I'm General Counsel at the Slate Group. I'm writing in reference to the podcast that appears to be entitled, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's. I noticed that you've made use of the Panoply logo and referred to yourself as part of the Panoply Network. Could you please confirm your formal affiliation with Panoply? If there is no such formal affiliation, we'll have to ask you to remove our logo along with the claim that you are part of the network. Best, Ava Lubell. As previously announced on our Twitter account at Pizza at McD's, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's has complied with this request by removing all reference to the Panoply Network from our official social media accounts, listings, and promotional artwork. For the full explanation, I present to you my response to the preceding correspondence. Dear Miss Lubell, it was with great concern that I received your correspondence in regard to my investigative journalism podcast, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's. An unfortunate side effect of my work as a truth seeker is a tendency to attract bad actors, that is, people seeking to deceive me for their own nefarious ends. My initial response to your missive was to suspect you were not, in fact, General Counsel at the Slate Group, and that your name was simply an anagram for whatever sinister agent who might wish to keep secret the reasons McDonald's stopped serving pizza. But in researching the possible anagrams for the name Ava Lubell, I could only come up with the phrase ball value, which I'm sure you know is unlikely to be a person's name. Further, I searched for your name on Google.com and discovered a byline of yours for a Slate.com article entitled This Week's Worst Person in Westeros, Cersei Lannister, obviously. So I am confident that you are who you say you are, and I apologize for the initial suspicion. To your point, I cannot say it comes as a complete shock that my investigative journalism podcast, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, is not officially sanctioned by the Panoply Network or its parent company, the Slate Group. 4 months ago, I received correspondence from a gentleman who identified himself as Mark Panoply, founder and CEO of the Panoply Network. He indicated he had heard I was investigating the mystery of whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's, and he wanted to explore the possibility that a podcast on the subject might be produced for his network. In this age of corporate media, it is an unfortunate truth that journalists such as myself often have to accept patronage wherever offered. I did my due diligence in determining there were no financial ties between the Panoply Network and McDonald's, and thus I accepted Mr. Panoply's offer. Although I had originally envisioned this project as a series of newspaper articles a la Woodward and Bernstein's Watertight Papers, as made famous in the film The American President, I had recently discovered that my laptop computer had a built-in microphone. The timing just seemed right. But, as the bard said, if something seems too good to be true, you better watch out. My suspicions of Mr. Panoply's identity were raised almost immediately when he insisted I wire him $7,500 for what he claimed were marketing fees. He assured me that I would recoup these costs and then some, as he was planning to advertise my investigative journalism podcast, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, during such high-profile programs as ABC's Designated Survivor and CBS's The Case of JonBenet Ramsey. But upon viewing both of these programs, I found not only that there were no advertisements for my show, but that the commercial concept Mr. Panoply had pitched to me, that of a baby who was afraid of the family dog until the parents put a fake lion's mane around the dog's face to trick the baby into thinking it was a lion, was a concept already in use by Amazon.com. And upon further reflection, I determined that this concept simply did not make sense as an advertisement for whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's in the first place. Further suspicions were aroused when I did not, as Mr. Panoply promised, receive a personal welcome letter from Panoply Network celebrity Karina Longworth, host of You Must Remember This. Instead, I received a store-bought greeting card featuring the cartoon character Ziggy, saying, "You always brighten my day." Inside the card was a name, handwritten in block print, Katrina Longworth. The host of You Must Remember This is not named Katrina, but is, as previously stated, Karina. Katrina is the name of a hurricane that devastated the city of New Orleans in 2005. The final straw came when I was not invited to the Panoply Network's Halloween party, and my calls for an invitation on Twitter.com were left unanswered. Is Mark Panoply really who he says he is? I wondered. Is my investigative journalism podcast, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, truly a part of the Panoply family? I asked myself. The answer to both of those questions, sadly, is no. Mark Panoply is just one of several aliases used by a professional confidence man whose real name is Monroe Boswell, a member of the notorious Boswell family of Romani migrants. Mr. Boswell has perpetrated numerous similar grifts to the one that duped me. In 2012, he was arrested in Duluth, Minnesota for posing as one Christopher Foods, CEO of Whole Foods, the organic grocery store chain. He solicited tens of thousands of dollars from local angel investors, promising they would see a substantial return on their money as soon as his company learned how to transport vegetables to the desolate town of Duluth. I do not have to tell you, no vegetables ever came to Duluth, Minnesota, and the residents there are still forced to subsist on a diet of beefsteak and vitamin pills. In 1994, Mr. Boswell famously called in to ABC News during their live coverage of the O.J. Simpson chase. Claiming to be a witness to the siege of Mr. Simpson's Brentwood home, Boswell strung along a credulous Peter Jennings until victoriously bellowing an ancient Romani victory chant, "Ba, ba, buoy." I have filed a police report regarding Mr. Boswell's fraudulent activities in regard to the Panoply Network, and I have complied with your request to remove all reference to Panoply from my investigative journalism podcast, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's. These changes will be rolling out in the coming hours and days. Please accept my humblest apologies. Even though Mr. Boswell spits lies as easily as some men spit, he was right about one thing. It was an honor, even if only in fantasy, to be a part of the Panoply Network, home of such groundbreaking podcasts as Our National Conversation About Conversations About Race, Bad with Money, Lady Problems, Videohead, Why Oh Why, Happy Sad Confused, Political Gabfest, Skill Set, Speed Dial, Happier with Gretchen Rubin, North Mollywood, The Stakes, Tablet Presents Unorthodox, Ink Uncensored, The Vulture TV Podcast, The Moment with Brian Koppelman, Adulthood Made Easy, New York Sex Lives, How Your World Works, The Most Useful Podcast Ever, Grub Street Podcast, Edge of Sports with Dave Zirin, You Must Remember This, Sophia Amoruso's #GirlBossRadio, The History Chicks, The Weeds, Life of the Law, Little Gold Men, Upstanders, Olympic Channel, The Message, Represent, The Ezra Klein Show, Big Think Again, Imaginary Worlds, Pregnancy Confidential, The Americans the Podcast, Trumpcast, Rolling Stone Music Now, The Labor of Love, Selected Shorts, Breakdown, The ER, Open Account, The United States of Debt, Film Spotting, Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History, Film Spotting SVU, Placemakers, The Next Picture Show, Intelligence Squared Debates, Points of Courage, Dear Prudence, Detective, Dog Smarts, Politically Reactive, Switched on Pop, The Runner's World Show, What the Crime, Runner's World Human Race, Too Hot for Radio, Money, Markets, and More, Tech News Briefing, WSJ Opinion Potomac Watch, Your Money Matters, What's News with John Wardock, It's Your Universe, This Week in Barron's, Money Beat, Heard on the Street, Media Mix, Free for All with Jason Gay, Watching Your Wealth with Veronica Dager, Off Duty, Whistle Stop with John Dickerson, Speakeasy with Christopher Farley, Sports Illustrated Draft Season NFL Podcast, Getting In, The Path to College, Culture Gabfest, Media Podcast with Richard Deitch, the Planet Football Podcast, the SI Vault Podcast, This Is Your Brain on Sports, the Fantasy Football Podcast, The Gray Area with Maggie Gray, Beyond the Baseline with John Wertheim, NFL Podcast Audibles, the College Football Podcast, the Strike Zone, On the Clock NFL Draft Podcast, Golf.com, Tourney Talk, Open Floor Podcast, the MMQB Podcast, Mom and Dad Are Fighting, Quiet, The Power of Introverts with Susan Cain, Burnt Toast by Food 52, Amicus with Dahlia Lithwick, The Gist with Mike Pesca, Slate's Hang Up and Listen Sports Talk, Lexicon Valley, Real Simple, Futuropolis, We the People, The Nick Podcast, Bosch the Podcast, Making a Murderer the Podcast, 4040 Vision, Coming Clean, Podcast for America, Slate's Spoiler Specials Downton Abbey, Slate Money hosted by Felix Salmon, Double X Podcast, and TV Club, Better Call Saul. In conclusion, I hope this unfortunate grifting incident does not sour the relationship between my investigative journalism podcast, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, and the Panoply Network. In time, perhaps we can even come together in an official capacity, and my show will once again, and for the very first time, be a proud part of the Panoply family. With contrition and warmest regards, Brian Thompson, investigative journalist. P.S. Do you remember when McDonald's served pizza? I will, of course, update you all as to whether Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's joins the Panoply Network in an official capacity, and or whether Miss Lubell remembers when McDonald's served pizza. In the meantime, our work will continue. Please keep listening as we go on this truth-seeking journey together. Today's episode of Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's has been brought to you by NatureBox. Are you tired of snacks? Does eating make you sad? NatureBox is here to help. Don't feel guilty. Feel healthy. Nuts, fruits, and seeds, dipped in things to make them good. Sometimes it's not a dip, but instead a dust. NatureBox. Snack on seeds. Thanks for listening to Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's. Subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at @pizza@McD's for breaking news, updates, or just to get in touch. Do you know what happened to pizza at McDonald's? Do you remember it? How did it taste? Please get in touch and let us know. Previously, I stated that Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's would be recording a live episode at the Now Hear This podcasting festival right after a live recording of Mike Daisy's Gab Fest. I now believe our invitation to this festival was another confidence scheme perpetrated by Monroe Boswell. Apologies for the error. For refund information, please email refunds@nowhearthispodfest.com and tell them I sent you. I'm Brian Thompson.